What's up everyone, welcome back to this series where we review the state of web components right now. In the last couple of videos, if you haven't seen them yet, check them out. I'll link them below and I'll put some cards up above as well. We went through an introduction. We chose 5 frameworks: Lit Element, Angular Element, Stencil, Bit, and Svelte, that we decided that we're gonna go through and review. We're gonna create the same type of web component in each one and compare and contrast. We're going to look at the documentation, the website, the community size, the support, and just give a general overview of how usable, how quick, how easy it is to create web components in each of these frameworks. And then at the end, we'll go back and we'll compare all of them together. In this video, we're going to be looking at Angular Elements, and I've got that website up right now. And just as a reminder, all the code that we create is available publicly on GitHub. I'm going to link that in the description below as well. So as you can see right now, we've got the Lit Element code right there, and you should be able to just clone this repo or fork it. You should be able to npm install and just run it out of the box. So Angular Elements is created by the Angular team. What they want to do is they want to enable users to convert their already existing Angular components into native web components so that they can be used in any framework or even without a framework. I guess there's a lot of community buzz, and maybe it's just a bit of flavor of the month type of thing, where they felt they had to create this maybe as a thought exercise, maybe just to keep up with what other frameworks are doing. Regardless, I've been thinking about this, and I don't think you would really create, I guess there would be valid use cases, but for the most part, because of the overhead involved in creating an Angular element, I don't think that many people are going to be spinning up a new version of Angular purely to create these custom elements, although there seem to be some benefits to doing that. So in this blue box here, it says we're working on custom elements that can be used. And by the way, custom elements is just another way of referring to web components. So we're working on custom elements that can be used by web apps built on other frameworks. A minimal, self-contained version of Angular framework will be injected as a service to support the component's change detection and data binding functionality. So that's pretty cool. There is a video presentation. I'll link that down below as well. So from what I understand, the team is creating a very light version of the Angular framework that can be injected as a service to support these web components, and I guess reduce a lot of the boilerplate that would be involved in creating one. So let's have a look through and see what they say about Angular Elements. Components, packages, custom elements, a standard way for defining new HTML elements in a framework agnostic way. They go through and they describe what custom elements are. The Angular Elements package exports a create custom element API that provides a bridge from Angular's component interface and change detection functionality to the built-in DOM API. Transforming a component to a custom element makes all of the required Angular infrastructure available to the browser. So that's pretty cool, because they do have a lot of functionality out of the box that I guess we can just make use of, and then by converting it to a custom element or a web component using create custom element API that they have exposed, we can make use of that, say in our React projects or in any other project that doesn't rely on Angular. So going down, using custom elements bootstrap themselves. They start automatically when they're loaded to the DOM, and are automatically destroyed when removed from the DOM. Once a custom element is added to the DOM for any page, it looks and behaves like any other HTML element and doesn't require any special knowledge of Angular terms or usage conventions. So they're highlighting easy dynamic content in an Angular app and content-rich applications as two of the main highlights of using this technology, and specifically using Angular to build these web components. All right, cool. So how it works. We use the create custom element function to convert a component into a class that can be registered with the browser as a custom element. After you register your configured class with the browser's custom element registry, you can use a new element just like a built-in HTML element and content that you add directly into the DOM. So pretty much functioning how I would expect it to. When your custom element is placed on the page, the browser creates an instance of the registered class and adds it to the DOM. I guess that just means that we can have multiple of the same element on the page because it's creating an instance of the registered class. The content is provided by the components template, which uses Angular template syntax and is rendered using the component and DOM data. Input properties in the component correspond to input attributes for the element. One thought that I'm already having is one barrier of entry is that the preferred language for developing Angular applications is TypeScript. In lit-HTML, they have TypeScript and ES6 support. Angular does have ES6 support. It is heavily preferred to use TypeScript. Transforming components to custom elements. Angular provides a create custom element function for converting an Angular component. Use a JavaScript function, custom elements.define. So that's the same function that we used in lit-HTML. There's a lot of similarity there to register the configured constructor and its associated custom element tag with the browser's custom element registry. Essentially, that's the bridge. So Chrome supported natively. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's made by the Google team. If Chrome wasn't supported natively, that would be something weird. Opera supported natively. Safari supported natively. The only two browsers with notes are Firefox. So supported natively as of version 63. Just a note here that the specification requires developers use the ES 2015 classes to define custom elements. So I guess we're gonna have to update the target property in the tsconfig JSON file when we do spin up a Angular project. Use the Angular CLI to automatically set up your project with the correct polyfill. ng add Angular elements. That's one thing I really like about Angular is the Angular CLI is really powerful and deals with a lot of the boilerplate for you using some simple commands. If you're interested about learning more about the Angular CLI, I do have another whole series on that, and I'm gonna link that above and below as well for you to check that out if you're interested. Finally, we're gonna get into an example. So they are using a pop-up service. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna skim through this and we're gonna use our own example, and we're gonna try and firstly create our progress bar in Angular. So we're gonna spin up a new Angular project. We're gonna create a component. We're gonna make that progress bar work just like it has in our previous examples, and then we're going to convert that into a custom element or web component using everything on this page. And hopefully by the end of it, we'll be able to use our standard index page that we've created right here, and we'll be able to drop our Angular component in. We'll look at the output, we'll look at the complexity, we'll assess how much better or worse than it is than the experience that we had with lit-HTML. First thing to do is spin up a new Angular project. One thing I forgot is how much there is involved in creating a new Angular project. Now we can cd into that folder again, and we can open that in VS Code. I'm gonna open a new terminal tab within VS Code, and we're gonna run ng serve. There we go. All right, cool. So this is our new project, Angular Elements, running on port 4200. So let's get back to it. All right, so what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna generate a new component called progress bar, and we're gonna recreate what we have already in our existing example in Angular. Let's just make sure that runs. We'll put all of that in our app component. So we'll replace all of this with progress bar, app progress bar. And that's one thing just to make keep in mind Angular prefixes automatically components with app. That is something that you can change in the Angular JSON file. So if you just change that prefix, it will automatically generate components with a different prefix. So let's change that now. All right, so that is our component being generated on the page. No issues, we'll keep that open. And just for the sake of making it all look the same, if I go back to the index file, I do remember there was one more style that we can copy over into the app component, just like that. And so the next thing we need to do is figure out how to increment this. Make sure that's still working. Awesome. So we see that incrementing. Oh, got a little issue there. There you go. Very cool. And the last thing we need to do is just fill up the progress bar as well. All right, so we have our Angular component right here. So just to run through exactly what we've done, we have created the progress bar component. We have created an input element called complete that allows us to take that complete value as an attribute. We have set a view child, I guess, reference to the inner part of the progress bar that is going to fill up as the completion percentage updates. We have on change, we have the code that sets the width, the styles, the width of the inner progress bar div element. Over here, we've just copied over the HTML div tags. So the only change that really has been made is over here. So this denotes the reference that we have to the view child. So that would match that. And we just converted the complete percentage template styling to match Angular's. We copied over the CSS for the progress bar exactly as it is, so there was no changes there. Then in the app component, which is the main component that loads in the project, we threw in the progress bar. Again, just to note that it's prefixed with app, and this is the attribute. In the app component class itself, we set up the complete attribute, and we've just converted over the code from the index file that deals with setting an interval that updates the complete attribute, just increments it by 1 every 100 milliseconds. And as we can see, boom, there it is. There's no errors. All right, awesome. So the next thing to do is to convert this into a native web component, then bring this index file back into our project, and hopefully outside of our Angular project, we should be able to pull in that component and use it. Coming back here, a couple of things that I remember we read is making sure that the target is set to ES 2015. So let's go back And let's do that first. So we'll kill this server so that we can restart it. Target is ES 2015. The next thing was ng add angular elements, just like that. Nice. Here we go. So now we have the setup done. So this is their component, which is a pop-up component. I guess we don't need to do anything here. Then let's have a look at app module and make sure that it looks the same as ours. So there is an entry component. Let's try without it for now. And then finally the app component. No component factory found for progress bar component. So we've got to add it to the entry components. We do have to do that. So that's the old one. It's one that we already had existing. We want to use this web component version instead. So right now this is our Angular component, and we want to use this this custom element or this web component. So there we go. All right, so we have it being loaded on our page now. So this is now our web component version, but obviously it's not dynamically updating because the complete attribute, I guess, isn't updating. So maybe if we progress bar L dot complete equals this dot complete, put that there. Hey, sweet. All right. So what we're seeing now is there's no elements here. Instead, we are defining the web component. We are adding it to the custom elements registry. That should be familiar syntax for us because we do that with the lit element component as well as the native web component element. We're then creating an instance of that web component class, and then we are adding it to our document's body. When we are updating the completed attribute, we're actually manually setting that like this, and that makes the progress bar fill up. Cool. So this is using the web component within the Angular project. What I want to do is figure out how to use it outside. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to build this project. All right, now we have the dist folder. I mean, it's going to be a case of importing every single one of these in, I guess. Alright, so what we're seeing now is the selector app root did not match any elements. So we've got to try and figure out how to make that happen. And I think another optimization that we can make to this build process is for us to, let's see, output hashing. If we set that to false and rerun the build process, ng build -- prod, I think rather than having file names that have the hash after it, it will just clear it up. Oh, okay, so not false, none. Let's try that again. And let's have a look at the results. Yeah, that's so much easier. All right, cool. So when we come back to our index file, we can just remove this part of it, the hash. It's so much more readable now. The other thing that we can do is just get rid of the ES5 files and just keep the ES 2015 files. And then let's go back. And we finally got it. So that was definitely a challenge, especially compared to what we did with lit element last time and what we did with the native elements. Overall, I think it was a pretty complicated task to convert this web component or to create this web component in the Angular framework. There was quite a few hurdles to jump over. One thing that I definitely didn't like is the fact that every time I make a change, I have to run ng build again and rebuild all the files. That is definitely a severe time suck. I do see the benefits of doing this if you already have an existing Angular project or you have some components within an Angular project that you want to convert over or use in a different project. But if you're starting a new project, I definitely wouldn't recommend choosing Angular elements to create your web components in. It's just a lot of work, a lot of overhead up front. There's definitely gonna be some benefits, but overall wasn't the easiest experiment to do. Hopefully you found this useful. Again, I'm gonna be uploading this code to the web components repo over here so that you don't have to do all this searching that I had to do. You can just convert the examples that I'm posting and try and replicate them for your own uses. In the next video, we're gonna be testing Stencil, which is a framework created by the Ionic team. I'm really excited for that one. I think that one's gonna be a lot of fun. Hit that like button and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that next video. Make sure you check out the earlier videos in this series if you're interested as well in the whole comparison, and I will see you next time.